In prehistoric times, both fully modern humans, what we call Cro-Magnon man, and Neanderthals buried their dead in elaborate graves. Why bury the dead unless you believe that it's important to preserve their remains in some way? Unless you believe in an afterlife or the supernatural. And if you do believe, then what do you believe? This mini lesson looks at the development of ancient religion, that is, how human societies have tried to understand the world around them through a belief in supernatural phenomena. Historians and anthropologists believe that ideas about the supernatural most likely arose as a way to explain the natural world. The earliest human ideas of the supernatural were probably animist, the belief that spirits or souls exist. Some modern human religions, like the traditional Native American religions or Japanese Shinto, are animist. Animism is also prevalent throughout Africa today. Animists ascribe souls to human beings and also to other animate or inanimate objects. Often, animists believe that individual souls are immortal, or they believe that these souls connect to a larger, universal, and immaterial soul. Thus, prehistoric human societies may have buried their dead as an indication of these animist beliefs. Animists then, and now, worship special animate and inanimate objects, since they are inhabited by souls, or worship the universal soul at specific locations. Very often, there aren't temples to worship at, but they will build altars in their homes or in the places where they believe specific souls exist. When coming together as a community, they may pray or worship through music and dancing, often led by a spiritual leader known as a shaman. By the time humans have begun to use written language to record their beliefs, most human societies practice some form of theism, the belief in a god or gods. Another word commonly used for God is deity. Or rather than spirits found in many places in nature, there were now supernatural beings whose actions directly affected events on earth. These beings were anthropomorphic, meaning they now had one recognizable image and might look like humans or some combination of animals and humans, and these gods behaved like humans. They grew angry and fought and loved and had families, and their motivations resembled those of humans as well. Specifically, most ancient human societies practiced polytheism, the belief in many gods. Polytheistic societies tended to explain natural events as the actions of their gods, supernatural beings whose actions directly affected the earth. The earliest human civilizations all had elaborate pantheons, families of gods and goddesses that, over time, had often been shared across several regions. As the people of these early civilizations traded with one another, they also learned from one another, sharing knowledge and language and ideas, and their religious beliefs. This cultural sharing led to diffusion, the transmission of mostly unchanged beliefs and or values across geographical areas. The map shown here traces a theory about the diffusion of an ancient language known as Indo-European. This language is believed to be the foundation of almost all modern languages found in Europe, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent. The same concept illustrated by this map applies to how an ancient religious belief may have spread across a geographical area over time. For instance, in ancient Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, the people believed in a mother goddess. You see her image there at left. This same goddess, her image, appears later on the other side of the Mediterranean in Roman Italy as the goddess Cybele, known as the Great Mother. In other cases, these new beliefs and new gods blended with the traditional beliefs in the region and instead led to syncretism, the mixing of diffused and traditional beliefs to create something entirely new. For instance, the appearance and power of the Egyptian goddess Astarte, who is the daughter of Ra, becomes part of the beliefs surrounding the Greek goddess Aphrodite, who is associated with beauty and fertility and is the daughter of Zeus, the father of all of the Greek gods. Or here's another example. The ancient Mesopotamian god Enki, or Ea, you may remember him from the Epic of Gilgamesh, who is the god of underground water and was associated with the rising sun, seems to have blended with the ancient Aryan god Agni, who is the god of fire, believed to have arisen from water and is connected to knowledge. As human civilizations became more complex, polytheistic religions developed traditional practices. There were people devoted to worship who were called priests or priestesses. These societies built temples, they made sculptures of their gods, they wrote stories which narrated the deeds of their gods. Some of these traditions became widespread and have been maintained until the present day. Hinduism is an example of a religion that some refer to as polytheistic and which emerged from an earlier religious tradition, Vedaism, which formed the cultural beliefs of the Aryans who first arrived in the Indian subcontinent somewhere around 1500 BCE. The sacred writings of Hinduism, its scripture, were first passed down generation to generation via oral tradition, before being written down sometime between the 700s and 200s BCE. In some places, most notably in the Persian Empire, which occupied pretty much the entirety of the modern Middle East, a different kind of religious belief developed. There, maybe as early as the 7th century BCE, a man named Zoroaster, also known as Zarathustra, proclaimed a new belief, a dualistic one that came to be known as Zoroastrianism. This religion is still practiced today. In Zoroastrianism, there is a belief in two opposing forces, Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, the creator, and Angra Mainyu, the destroyer. Zoroastrians believe that these two forces and their supernatural armies are engaged in a constant battle for control of the universe, and that humans play a role in this battle. Believers follow the threefold path of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, so as to help the forces of Ahura Mazda win the battle, and through this path, they hope to achieve eventual immortality through the resurrection of their souls. Those who instead aid Angra Mainyu, they descend into darkness. Now, if these ideas sound familiar, they should. Some historians believe that, just as the development of Zoroastrianism was likely the result of syncretism, Zoroastrianism, in turn, may have laid the foundations for some of the beliefs of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam through syncretism. Even as most ancient human societies adopted some form of polytheism, there was one region which rejected the polytheistic tradition around them. In eastern India, around the 6th century BCE, a man named Gautama Buddha preached about a new way to achieve nirvana, or enlightenment. The religion he founded is known as Buddhism. Now, given his traditional Hindu culture, Gautama Buddha would have grown up believing, as all Hindus did, that the way to achieve nirvana, of breaking the cycle of death and rebirth and joining one's soul, one's Atman, to the overarching spirit of Brahman, was by following the practices of Hinduism. However, Gautama discovered different religious truths through meditation and personal enlightenment, and instead came to preach about a new belief. One of the central concepts of traditional Buddhism is that there is no Atman, no permanent unchanging soul. Thus, Buddhism explicitly turns away from the teachings of Hinduism, and also turns away from its practices. For instance, the Buddha denounced the caste system which formed the basis of society in the Indian subcontinent. Furthermore, in traditional Theravada Buddhism, the Buddha is not considered a deity but rather a guide. For this reason, historians sometimes refer to traditional Buddhism as non-theistic. It is a religion that is not centered around the belief in and worship of gods, but rather around the practices and beliefs of meditation that the Buddha taught. The development and elaboration of various religious traditions in the ancient world was as diverse and complex as that of our modern world. These traditions formed the basis of the earliest human ethics, moral principles that govern one's actions. They also gave birth to the earliest idea of philosophy, generally loosely defined as a body of knowledge, one that encompasses the study of general and fundamental questions. This was the purpose of religion in the first place. What's important to remember is that regardless of the particular religious tradition that any given human society had or has, religion forms a basis for culture and for values, and often even for political and social systems. Moving forward, we'll continue to trace the ways in which religious belief influenced various aspects of human society, and, eventually, we'll look at the ways in which some societies sought to consciously separate religion from their political and social systems.